Hey everybody, hope you guys are healthy and safe. So you're watching footage shot with the main camera of the Vivo X80 Pro right now. I do have this thing on a selfie stick, so it's a little bit more extended from my face. But you notice that right now there should be some blur, background blur around my head, and also the aspect ratio is really narrow. That's because I'm shooting with the new cinematic portrait mode of the Vivo X80 Pro. So this is basically portrait video. You'll get this little background blur and also shoot in a widescreen aspect ratio for that cinematic vibe. So this is very similar to the modes that Apple and Samsung have already offered. Okay, so now this is cinematic mode with the artificial bokeh on the iPhone 13 Pro and the Vivo X80 Pro. How does it look right now while we still have some light? But the Vivo X80 Pro at least one-ups the iPhone in that it can shoot cinematic mode even at night or in low light situations like right now, whereas the iPhone cannot. It can only do so during the day with good lighting. If you try it at night, it will say there's not enough light to produce a digital blur. So this new cinematic style is part of a package of portrait filters or styles that Vivo developed for the Vivo X80 Pro, and it also works for still photos, so it's not just for videos. I really like this portrait film filter in particular. It gives off this retro film camera vibe that I really like, and you can adjust the degree of bokeh and the focus point after the fact, after you've taken a shot in the photo gallery app. This mode is really fun to play with, and I've captured some of my favorite pictures of my girlfriend with this phone in the last few weeks. Okay, I know some of you guys are going to be like, oh, the videos look so grainy. Well, a main reason for that is because it is ultimately limitations of smartphone hardware. There's only so much a hardware can do when you're shooting low light conditions. When you do shoot in better lighting conditions, you do get sharper footage. But for me personally, I actually think the graininess of these videos add to the cinematic vibe. I don't know if you guys saw the recent Batman movie, but that movie looked like it was out of focus and a little bit like noisy at all times, and that was by design. The directors did that on purpose for a cinematic moody vibe, and I actually think when you have a grainy night video, it actually looks like that a little bit. The camera hardware here is very similar to the camera hardware in the Vivo X70 Pro Plus. There are only 3 changes that I know of. So the first change is the main camera, the 50 megapixel main camera. It now uses a Samsung GN-V sensor. This is a new sensor per se, but it's really just a slightly modified version of the GN1 sensor that was used in the last 2 Vivo flagship phones. So that means it's a really good sensor still, 1/1.3 image sensor size, but it's not a complete brand new, never before seen hardware. The second change is the imaging chip inside is now the V1 Plus. Last year's X70 Pro Plus used the V1, so the V1 Plus, it's also just a slight iterative upgrade on the V1 chip, but the V1 Plus chip, according to Vivo, is what made the cinematic mode possible. The third change is going to be a little bit controversial. So the gimbal camera system that on the X70 Pro Plus supported the ultra wide camera, it is now moved to the telephoto camera. So now it supports the 2x zoom lens. Now Vivo's logic is that you can use the 2x portrait lens to take videos now, and you won't have as many shakes. But I'm someone who likes shooting video with the ultra-wide camera a lot, and in my opinion, I would rather have the gimbal system in the ultra-wide camera. And even though ultra-wide footage on the X80 Pro is still reasonably stable, if I do actually move very fast, the X70 Pro Plus's video is less shaky, as you can see here. Now I'm just going to be honest here, I've taken over 100 photos already with the Vivo X80 Pro and the Vivo X70 Pro Plus, and the differences between the two cameras are very, very small. If you have the Vivo X70 Pro Plus, I almost want to say you don't have to upgrade to the X80 Pro unless you really want to shoot cinematic video. But you have to keep in mind, the X70 Pro Plus already had, in my opinion, the best camera system around, particularly the main camera. It consistently outperformed the iPhone 13 Pro, the S22 Ultra, or the Google Pixel 6 Pro in HDR shots, and the X80 Pro continues this trend, particularly in shots where I'm shooting at night against neon lights or any source of bright lights. You see that the Vivo X80 Pro shot is just better balanced, better HDR than the iPhone 13 Pro Max and the Galaxy S22 Ultra. I personally like the X80 Pro's camera better than the S22 Ultra or the iPhone 13 Pro Max's camera, but it's just not that much better, if at all, than the X70 Pro Plus's camera. Okay, I'll come back to the cameras in a bit. Let's first go over the rest of the hardware. It is very, very similar to the Vivo X70 Pro Plus's hardware. So you have a 6.8-inch OLED panel. It's a 2K panel, LTPO, so that means the refresh rate can go all the way up to 120 Hz, but it can also drop down to 1 Hz. so it conserves battery. There's a 4700 milliamp hour battery in there, and battery life for me has been pretty good. If I'm really pushing it heavily, like when I'm outside all day filming and using the phone a lot, it will drain up to 10, 11, 12% per hour. So that means the phone won't even last me 10 hours out on a heavy days of use. But on a lighter day, on days when I'm tied to the computer and the phone is more sitting on a desk, then it will finish a 12, 13 hour day with like 30, 40% left. The good news is there is an 80-watt charging brick that comes in the box, and charging is very, very fast. Okay, so it is 7:20 p.m. right now, and I'm at 16% battery. Okay, I'm gonna plug it in. It should be charging. Yep, it says flash charge 16%, 7:20. Okay, it's now 7:30, so it's been 10 minutes since I've plugged in the X80 Pro. And boom, we are at 51% at 7:30. So in general, Vivo just goes above and beyond with its packaging. You also get USB-C earbuds and this case. This is not a cheap plasticky case too. This case is made of vegan leather, or the faux leather material that was in the Vivo X60 Pro Plus, and you just snap on. It covers the back and the corners. It's quite nice, and I like this texture a lot more than the actual texture of the back glass. This is the same textured back as seen in the Vivo X70 Pro Plus, and I didn't like that either. It's this frosted texture that feels a little bit slippery in the hand, but the back is Gorilla Glass Victus, so you do get protection. But I have been using a case on it anyway to get this leather feel. Now, other than the cameras, there are two upgrades in hardware from this phone over the X70 Pro Plus. The first is the obvious. This thing runs on the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 over the Snapdragon 888. To be honest, you're not really going to see a difference unless you look at benchmark numbers. I think mobile chips have gotten really, really good now that, you know, even if you use one from last year, you're not going to see a big difference. Where you will see a big difference is in the fingerprint scanner. So Vivo upgraded the scanner here as an in-display scanner, but it is now an ultrasonic 3D Max scanner from Qualcomm. And this scanner is not only a little bit faster than the optical scanner used in last year's X70 Pro Plus, but also has a larger scanning area. In fact, the scanning area is so large, Vivo built this software trick that allows you to launch an app directly from the lock screen, because you just have to put your finger on that part of the screen and you can launch that app. And it's completely customizable, so you can set it to launch WhatsApp, Instagram, Gmail, whatever the heck you want. So other than the fingerprint scanner and the SoC, the rest of the package is very, very similar to the X70 Pro Plus. Same speakers, same haptic engine, same display to my eyes, and like I said, the camera performance are very, very similar too. And if you own the X70 Pro Plus, you really do not need to upgrade to the X80 Pro. Now this phone runs on Android 12 with Vivo's Fun Touch software on top, so not Origin OS. Origin OS is only for a Vivo phone sold inside China. This is the global version, so Fun Touch. Fun Touch is okay for the most part. It stays out of the way. Animations are pretty fluid, and I like that I can now open apps in a floating window, which I couldn't do in the last couple of versions of Fun Touch. Okay, now let's get back to the camera. So the ultra wide camera here is a 48 megapixel sensor with a 114 degree field of view. It also, as mentioned, doesn't have that gimbal system that was in here. The gimbal system got moved to support the 2x telephoto zoom lens as a 12 megapixel lens. Like I already said, I prefer it on the ultra wide lens, but I can see why Vivo chose to put the gimbal system on the 2x portrait lens, because when you're shooting videos, the longer the focal length, the easier it is to accidentally have shakes. So the gimbal lens will offset a little bit of that, and as you can see from these videos here, I'm shooting with a 2x portrait lens handheld, and video look relatively stable. You know, it's not too shaky. And finally, you have a 5x periscope zoom lens, 8 megapixel, exact same periscope zoom lens here and the one seen in the Vivo X Fold. And the periscope zoom lens here is just okay. It's definitely not on par with the Galaxy S22 Ultra's epic periscope zoom lens, but it is definitely better than not having a periscope zoom. So anytime I compare zoom photos between this phone and a phone without a periscope, like an iPhone 13 Pro, this phone will win. But if I compare zoom photos against the S22 Ultra, then the S22 Ultra will win. But overall though, like I said, the Vivo X80 Pro, just like the X70 Pro Plus, really excels in low-light photography and also HDR photos. If you're comparing photos by the main camera, you can see the iPhone and the S22 Ultra can still keep up a little bit. But once you move to the ultra-wide camera, the X80 Pro's ultra-wide shots are just much sharper and much better illuminated overall than the ultra-wide shots in the iPhone 13 Pro or the Galaxy S22 Ultra. I'm pretty happy with video performance too, and I'm talking about normal videos now, not the portrait style video. Okay, so we have a Galaxy S22 Ultra and the Vivo X80 Pro 4K 30 footage. Okay, so you're watching main camera footage with the Vivo X80 Pro and the iPhone 13 Pro Max. I'm on a pretty dark street. Main camera footage 4K 30. So overall, I'm very happy with the Vivo X80 Pro. I think in my opinion, at least for still photos, I still think this is the best phone on the market, at least with the main and the ultra wide camera. Like I said, the periscope zoom lens is a little bit disappointing compared to not just the S22 Ultra's periscope, but also like the Xiaomi 11 Ultra's periscope. I think there's room for improvement here. But with that said, I keep coming back to this. If you already own the Vivo X70 Pro Plus, you do not need to get this phone at all. The improvements are very, very minor. It's almost like I feel like Vivo may be pumping out the V phones a little bit too fast because, you know, other brands are releasing flagship phones one model a year. Like there's an S22 and then the S23 isn't coming till next year. Vivo's releasing a new flagship X series every 6 months. And I just think, you know, phone innovations has kind of slowed down a little bit. I'm not sure you can expect major improvements every 6 months going forward. Like I'm not sure, other than improving the periscope zoom lens, and maybe what Vivo can do with the X90 series that can improve on this. And the X90 series, you know, knowing Vivo will be out like in September or October. I mean, that's not that far from now. So, but I guess Vivo's strategy with the X series is kind of like Oppo's strategy with the Reno series, meaning this phone, the X80, it's not aimed at people who already own the X70. This phone is aimed at people who might be coming over from another phone or someone who has the X60 or X50. It's kind of like what Apple does with the Apple Watch. You know, when Apple releases an Apple Watch 6, the 5 still goes on sale. It's not like the 5 gets replaced. The Apple Watch 6, it's not aiming for people who owns the Apple Watch 5. It's aiming at people who owns the Apple Watch 3 or the Apple Watch 4. So I guess same logic here, but I do think maybe Chinese brands need to slow down the releases a little bit. Okay, I don't know the pricing of this phone yet, but we already know going by the last couple of Vivo top tier X series devices, this is gonna be over $1,000 US. It might even get up to $1,100, $1,200. I think at $1,200, it's cutting a little bit too close to the S22 Ultra that most people will pick the S22 Ultra. It has a better zoom, it has an S Pen, it has slightly better battery life. But if you care about shooting the best HDR photos, particularly if you live in a city with a lot of neon lights like Hong Kong, Tokyo, Shanghai, or like Seoul, this phone is gonna blow you away with a lot of photos. Like to this day, the Vivo X70 Pro Plus still consistently grabs shots that makes me go like, wow, that the iPhone 13 Pro just cannot do. So this will continue that trend. This will carry on the torch as the best still photo camera phone of the year, probably. So that's about it for this review. I have a lot more content coming up. In fact, I might have content coming up the day that you're watching this video, and I might be in another country, who knows. So yeah, if you're interested, keep up to date with all the latest gadgets, please subscribe to my channel and follow me on Instagram at Ben's Gadget Reviews. That's it for now. Thanks for watching.